I'd like to introduce Sam Schulemson. He attended HSI as a senior during the February 2011 session and was one of our great, wonderful students. And we just thought we'd ask him some questions about his trip. So Sam, we wanted to talk about HSI. What was your favorite TUL, and tell us about it?
My favorite TUL was it was Masada. And when we went on that TUL, I knew that this trip would be different from anything that I had ever been on before. My teacher was Yossi Katz, arguably the most incredible human being I've ever met. And what he did was we climbed up the snake path early in the morning. We get to Masada, we tour around the ruins a little bit, he tells us a little bit of the story, and then at the very end he leads us into the water cistern. And we sit down in a circle and he says, "Alright, you are now the Zikari fighters on Masada, and you have a choice. You know that the ramp has been completed, and that in morning the Romans will come and storm, and they will kill every single one of you. However, the Roman general has offered surrender. What do? Do you fight and surely be killed, or do you surrender and live as a slave?" And we went around the room talking about what we would do. And then when it came to me, I asked my teacher, I said, what about suicide? I thought maybe it would be better than being killed by the Romans, and I didn't want to surrender. And he said, "Well, you bring up a good point, but there's no poison up here, so if you want to do it, you have to do it yourself." And he hands me an actual Zikari dagger and tells me to close my eyes. And he says, "Imagine that your little sister's on your lap, and she's crying and holding on to you, and she's scared, but you know that you need to kill her, or else the Romans will, and they'll torture her and make her life miserable. Could you do it?" And I had never really had a very good relationship with my sister, but at that moment, I started crying a little bit, and I gave him back the dagger, and I said, "There's no way that I could ever do this." So we finished up our discussion, and then our teacher proceeded to tell us the story of Masada. Proceeded to tell us how 1,000 Jews felt that it was a better idea to die as a Jew than live as a slave. And that was the first time that I ever felt pride for my ancestors, because they could do something that I never, ever would have been able to do. And that's the first time that I ever felt proud to be a Jew. Mm. After that, we walked out to the ledge, and he told us that when the Israeli soldiers, when they get initiated into the army, they run up to Masada, and they scream at the top of their lungs, "Shinit mitzada lo tipol," which means Masada shall not fall again. And he told all of us to stand at the ledge and shout it, and we did. And in the echo, we heard the same words repeated, and to us it sounded like the ancestors of Masada affirming their promise.
That's incredible. That is incredible. On a lighter note, tell me about dorm life, just living in the dorm on campus.
Dorm life was great. We were in Rappaport, which is definitely one of the worst dorms, but I wouldn't have traded it for the world, because we really made it our home. We were there for 2 months. I actually was in the double room. Every other room is usually 4 people to a room. I had 8 people in my room. So we had twice the size of our common room, and then 2 little areas. And my roommates, those are the people that I'm closest with on this trip, because every night we would stay up past the time that we were supposed to, just talking and laughing. And we talked about girls, we talked about sports, we talked about the TULs, we talked about life, we talked about everything. And I've shared so much with these guys that they really became my family.
That's great. You went off to college, of course, and you want to talk about where you're going to college and how it's been for you?
I went to Indiana, I just finished my freshman year at Indiana University. Go Hoosiers.
And did the experience you had at HSI help you with that first year of college?
Definitely. When I went to college, one thing that I knew was that I was going to get involved in something Jewish. And there wasn't any waiting period for me. The day I got to college, I knew that that was something that I wanted to do, and I did. I mean, but one of the interesting things that I would point out is a bunch of my friends, they actually went on Birthright. And while Birthright is this great program, and it's an incredible program, one thing that I kind of felt was, I talked to one of my good friends, and his favorite part of Birthright, you know, I thought he was going to say Masada or something like that. His favorite part was watching Indiana beat Ohio State in a bar in Tel Aviv. And, you know, that was a little bit disappointing to me, but...
Compared to your experiences.
Compared to my experience. I mean, it's still a great program. It's still a great way to see Israel during the college years, but I definitely feel like AMHSI had much more of an impact on my Jewish involvement, on my readiness to be Jewish, and readiness to get involved than Hillel did on Birthright.
Right. So how would you say, all in all, it affected you? I mean, how were you before you left, and how did the program affect you?
It affected me the day that basically after Masada, this program affected me in every single way. Hanging up in my dorm room is the biggest Israeli flag that I could find on Ben Yehuda Street. I joined a Jewish fraternity. Next year I plan to really get involved in Indiana's chapter of Friends of Israel and the APAC chapter there. I actually did something that I never thought I would ever do, and I became I'm trying to get a certificate in Jewish studies. And then I'm thinking about going back to Israel actually sometime over the summer and volunteering with Magen David Adom, which I think would be an incredible program. I mean, it definitely affected my life, because after this program, if you talked to me for maybe more than 10 minutes, you would find out that Israel was an incredibly important part of my life. Before, there was this one article written by our school newspaper attacking Israel. Before this program, I might have just looked at it and, okay, whatever. He brings up maybe a couple of good points. After this, I wrote him an email attacking his article. It really, this trip made Israel an important factor in my life.
That's great. What about the kids that you've been in touch with since then?
We all have a Facebook group, and every day I get a new message on it, and everybody, it's always something like, I miss you so much, we all need to go back. Occasionally it's like something interesting that happened to them that reminded them of the trip. I was the only guy from my area in D.C., so there were 4 other girls, and I mean, we all became really close. Even before the trip, we just had a travel experience that really brought us together. And I mean, these people are my family, and I might not talk to them every day. You know, I don't. I'm kind of bad about staying in touch, but I shared something with these people that I will never share with anybody else, and to them, they're my family for that.
That's great. So good hearing all that information.